Hey everyone, today I am putting together a part of my garden that I am so excited for, and that is my hydrangea garden, all grown in pots. So I have loved hydrangeas forever. They've always been one of my favorite flowers, even before I started gardening, but before I started container gardening, I didn't really know how many things you could actually grow in pots. So I just assumed, because I'd always seen these really large, beautiful hydrangea bushes growing in the ground, that you had to have a yard to grow them. Same thing with things like fruit trees. I'd never seen them grown in pots before, so I just didn't think it was a possibility. And now it is, and I am making my hydrangea dreams come true, even though I'm on a rooftop deck. So I have 4 over here, 3 over on that side. I will go through each hydrangea individually in just a bit, but I basically have 7 that are at least a year old. Some of these are 2, some of these I just got last year. And I overwintered them in the garage. I will go over all those care tips later in the video as well. So I have those potted up, and then I also have 5 new ones that I got sent from Proven Winners, and I'm gonna get those potted up and then get everything into place. Is this too many hydrangeas for my 18 by 19 square foot deck? Probably. Am I gonna make it happen anyway? Absolutely, again, because I love them so much. Now, I think most of these, except for one, are compact hydrangeas, and they get to either 3 feet maximum or a little bit smaller, which is so exciting. And I really started getting into gardening 5 to 6 years ago, and it does seem like even in that time there are so many more options for compact varieties of plants that I love. And then I was recently listening to a podcast from the University of Illinois all about growing fruit trees specifically in containers. And they really mentioned that it's been the last decade or so when this demand for more compact plants has really taken off. More varieties are coming out each year. I'm going to link that podcast down below because it was great, not just for fruit trees, but also for just information on growing in containers in general. So check that out below. And then I'm going to go through all of the hydrangeas that I have, that I just got. We will pot up the 5, and then I will kind of get things into place, and we'll talk a little bit about care tips. But you guys, I am so excited to put this together in my garden. Now, if there's something you might already know about me, it's that not only do I love gardening, but I also love, well, cats and spreadsheets. So I obviously had to make a spreadsheet of all of the hydrangeas that I have just to keep them organized. That way I will, 1, know all the varieties. I will delete the rows of any that I kill. I'll know the height, the color, and I can sort all of that information for whenever I need it. So for this example, I am going to sort by height so I can figure out where I want these to go in the garden or what order I want to put them in. I will link this spreadsheet. Obviously, this is going to be specific to the varieties I have, but if you're like, what was that variety that she talked about that got, I don't know, 2 feet tall and wide? I will link this below as a view-only document so you can access it. So I'm going to start with what are the oldest hydrangeas in my garden, which are these 2 right here, and they're both the same variety. I did have hydrangeas in years past, but with my experimentation on how to overwinter them in Chicago, those don't exist anymore. So these are now the oldest ones in my garden. But this is the tiny quickfire hydrangea, and I got both this one and this one from the Grand Garden Show in Mackinac Island back in 2022. I think that was the year, 2022, the Grand Garden Show. And they have grown so much. They were in very small, I think like the 4-inch containers that you normally get plants in. That's what these were in. So this is their growth in 2 years, and they haven't bloomed yet. A lot of my hydrangeas are at different stages of bloom, but these do have buds on them. So I'm really excited. So let me give you some information about the tiny quickfire. These are Hydrangea paniculata, so those are panicle hydrangeas. Panicle hydrangeas and mountain hydrangeas tend to be more cold tolerant than just the regular big leaf or mophead hydrangeas. So if you live in a cold climate and you can't move these inside somewhere in a more protected area over the winter, then I would definitely recommend looking for panicle or mountain hydrangeas. But these are panicle. They get to about 3 feet tall and wide. They are hardy to zones 3 through 8, but remember, if you're growing in containers, that you need to go 2 zones below your current zone. So I'm 6A. These are down to zone 3. So these could technically survive the winter in Chicago outside because there's 3 zones colder than 6 where I'm currently located. The bloom color of these is white. They are not affected by the pH of the soil. Some hydrangeas can be either pink, purplish, bluish, depending on the soil acidity, but these will be white no matter how you supplement the soil. And then pruning for these, it just says to trim in late winter, early spring. I haven't done much pruning on any of these because they are still relatively young. If I do see anything that's broken or dead or damaged, I have done a little bit of pruning on that, but otherwise, I haven't really touched these. So again, 2 of the exact same variety of the tiny quickfire. These are the only 2 I think I have that are the same, or maybe I have another one that is a duplicate variety. And I'm currently growing these. I will show you the containers I'm growing them in, but these are in containers that are roughly 12 inches in diameter. They're my smaller pots of the 2 different pots that I have that I'll go over. So I might have to move these at some point, but for now, they seem happy in this pot size. All right, we're gonna wheel over this next hydrangea. This one is still relatively small, but there are flowers on it already. This is the Let's Dance Can Do hydrangea. So let me pull up my notes on this. I'm not at all a hydrangea expert, but I feel like I'm getting much better educated about hydrangeas than I was before. So this one again is Let's Dance Can Do. This is a hybrid between the macrophylla or the big leaf hydrangea and serrata or mountain hydrangea. So there are a few different terms. Panicle, paniculata, that's the same, just one's the Latin and one's the common name. Macrophylla, big leaf, that's the same. Serrata, mountain, that's the same. So this again is a hybrid between the macrophylla and serrata. It gets 3 to 4 feet high and about 3 feet wide. So this one will be a little bit taller eventually than the other ones. And I would say maybe, at least looking at the tiny quickfire, it grew like 4 to 5 inches each year. So obviously perennials are gonna grow slower than annuals who get to their full size within 1 season. But I absolutely love the color on these. So this one is zones 4 through 9. The combination of it being macrophylla and serrata hybrid means that it can be a little bit more cold tolerant than just macrophylla on its own. And then this one can be turned blue or pink depending on the pH of the soil. I have some that are a few different colors. I'm not doing anything to change the color. Even though it's easier to do in containers because you have total control over the growing medium, I'm just too lazy for that, so I don't feel like messing around with the color, but I do have some that are a little different, and I'll show you in just a second. This one, it says for pruning, cannot be pruned at any point in the year without negatively impacting flowering. It's best to avoid pruning this hydrangea altogether, which tell me I don't have to do something, and that is fantastic. If portions of the plant were damaged from winter weather, they can be removed in spring when it is clear where the new growth is emerging. So I think in general, I don't plan to do much with my hydrangeas unless things are broken or damaged, and I'll prune that. But because they're compact, I don't think I'll have, hopefully, a lot of issues with them space-wise anyway. So my plan, not prune that often. So that again is the Let's Dance Can Do. We'll wheel this back over and then bring out this one, which is probably the one that looks a little bit sad, and it's completely my fault. So this is the Let's Dance Ariba hydrangea. This one I overwintered from last year, and I moved it out too soon. I think I was just too excited. I think I did that with my rose. It got warmer and then cold and then really wet, and I think that did not make this hydrangea very happy. Now, there is a bunch of new growth, because basically that was before it flowered, I think, and so the growth down here fell off or shriveled up, but now it is putting out new growth. So I'm letting this go in the garden, and hopefully I can nurse it back to looking as healthy as the other ones do. But again, totally my fault. I need to be more patient with moving plants out in the spring. That is always one of my biggest issues. So the Let's Dance Ariba is also a hybrid between the macrophylla and serrata hydrangea. It gets 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. I would say this is a little bit under 2 feet right now. This is its second year in my garden. It is hardy in zones 4 through 9, and this one again is also blue or pink depending on the pH, and it's the same pruning as the other one. So basically don't really do anything to it unless you have to. So those are the 4 that are on this side of the garden. So I'm going to push these back over, and then we'll bring over the 3 other hydrangeas that I have from previous years. So this is the Tough Stuff Aha, and this is the one that I said where I have a slightly different bloom color. I think this one was from Chalet Nursery either last year or the year before. I can't remember for sure, but this one is blue, and I've never done anything to the soil. So typically you add a soil acidifier, and that's what turns the flowers blue. I've done none of that, and this has just stayed blue. Now, in that same Fruit Tree and Container podcast I listened to, that will be linked down below, I think they mentioned that potting soil in general tends to be a little bit more acidic, so that could be impacting it. But then again, none of my other hydrangeas are blue. The rest of them are pink looking around. So I think that is really cool. So this one again is Tough Stuff Aha. Let's look up the information on this. So this one is not a hybrid. It is a mountain hydrangea or serrata. And this one, I think you can tell a little bit differently on the flower heads. They're a little bit, I would say, flatter and not as rounded as the ones that are the hybrid, but I think they're still absolutely beautiful. And on this one, it will get to 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. This one's only hardy down to zone 5, so it's for zones 5 through 9, and the flower can be blue or pink depending on the pH. Now, as far as pruning for this one does say does not need pruning except to remove any dead wood in early spring. Do not cut back or trim this plant any time of the year. So again, very low maintenance in terms of pruning, but this one I absolutely love. I just love that there's a little bit of variety in the colors of the flowers on these hydrangeas. So we will wheel you back and then bring out what might be my favorite one right now just because of the amount of blooms on it. Look at this hydrangea. This is the Let's Dance Skyview. It is also a hybrid between Macrophylla and Serrata. And look how cute this is. Now the leaves on it are turning a bit yellow with green veins, which typically means an iron deficiency. That can happen if your plants get overwatered with the rain we've been having. I think that's what's happening. So I did hit this with some iron, I think just yesterday. So I'm hoping those leaves turn back to bright green, but let me set this down so I can go over the information. But I just think, I mean, of all the hydrangeas I have right now, this one is the most covered in blooms. Like, you see more blooms than you see leaves. So the information for this one, so Let's Dance Skyview, like I said, it is the hybrid between Macrophylla and Serrata. It will get to between 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, zones 4 through 9, flower color blue or pink depending upon pH. And this one does say it may be trimmed after early summer flowering. But I just think this one is stunning. So now we have one more left, and this is the only one that isn't a compact variety. And I don't know why I have it or how I got it. So this is Pinky Winky Prime. This can get to between 6 and 9 feet tall and wide. So I will probably find a different home for this either this fall or early spring next year, because it's not going to be very happy in this container for very long. I think this one I just got last year, and I'd say it's maybe put on like 4 to 5 inches in growth as well. This is a Hydrangea paniculata, so a panicle hydrangea, so these flowers are more like cone-shaped than they are round, and the flowers will be white, but I think this is really stunning. So let me give you the information other than the 6 to 9 feet. It is hardy zones 3 through 8. Again, panicle hydrangeas much better in colder zones. In fact, at ground level, we have both a panicle hydrangea and some big leaf hydrangeas. I don't know the exact variety because they were here before us. And the big leaf ones don't really bloom because they keep getting damaged in the winter, whereas the panicle hydrangeas bloom beautifully every single season. So if you're in Chicago, you can't keep hydrangeas inside over the winter or in a protected area, go for panicle. Flowers on these will be white during the majority of the growing season, but as it gets into fall, a lot of these panicle hydrangeas get that like deep pink kind of with the white ombre effect. It's really pretty. I'll put in a picture of it, but I absolutely love this. I just, again, probably need to find a different home for this. In terms of pruning, it says pruning is recommended in early spring. Remove weak branches in the middle and about 1/3 of the height and width. Again, I'm not doing that yet because it's still relatively small, but once it gets to its full size, then I will prune it back. But right now, I mean, this is the size that it is without me cutting it back by 1/3. It also says dead or damaged wood can be removed at any time, just cut back to a set of leaves. So those are the hydrangeas I currently have. Now we'll go through the 5 that I just got this year. We'll get them potted up and we'll figure out where all of these are going to go, but I cannot wait. First up is this hydrangea, Wee Bit Innocent. It is a Hydrangea macrophylla, so a big leaf hydrangea. This one will get to, oh, it's one of the smaller ones, so it will get to between about 2 feet high, 2.5 feet wide, zones 5 through 9. The flowers will change depending upon pH. You can see they're coming in with that light pink color on them right now. I think these are going to be really pretty. I'm so excited. And then the pruning on this one is the same as the other macrophylla, where it says, don't really do anything, only if anything's diseased or dead. Next up is this hydrangea, which is the Firelight Tidbit. It is a panicle hydrangea, so it'll have those white flowers. This one will get to between 2 to 3 feet high and a width of about 3 feet. Flower color not changed by the pH, and then it says prune by cutting back to about 1/3 in late winter or early spring. But again, gonna wait till these get a little bit larger to do that. So this is another one that I already have. So this is another of the Let's Dance Ariba, which is the one that I brought out too early. So at least I do have a second one. I mean, this one looks like it's recovering just fine, but just in case I have a backup. And I do like the balance of having 2 varieties with 2 each, so 2 of 2 varieties for whenever I'm putting this in place to kind of add some balance. Although I'm realizing, oh no, I think I have an even number of hydrangeas, right? I think. We'll see when we get all these planted up. So then the final 2, this one here is Tough Stuff Top Fun. This is a Hydrangea serrata. This is between 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. Now the other one is Tough Stuff Aha. This is Tough Stuff Top Fun. You know, make sure I label all of these so I don't forget. Zones 4 through 9, and again, the flowers can be changed based on pH. I am wondering, because the other Tough Stuff is coming in blue, this one doesn't have flowers yet. There are buds starting to form, so I'm interested to see what color this turns out to be. And finally, we have Let's Dance Big Band. This is a Hydrangea macrophylla, big leaf hydrangea. This one is 2.5 feet tall and wide. It is zones 5 through 9, and the flowers will be pink or blue depending on the pH of the soil. And those are all of my hydrangeas. So now we will, well, let me actually go through the planters that I'm going to use, and then we will get these 5 potted up. First off, I have this container, which I got 4 of these from an estate sale, but it was actually an estate sale for a garden center that had gone out of business in Chicago. So I got 4 of these. I can't remember the price. It was super cheap. And I have 1 of these left. The other 3 already have hydrangeas in them. Now this, again, I think the diameter is about 12 inches. It's not super deep though. Maybe, I'm really bad at estimating, but maybe like 9 inches deep. I'm gonna see if my hydrangeas seem to be happy in this, like the ones that only get to 2 to 2.5 feet tall and wide. I think this would be a perfect pot size for them, because you don't want the pot to end up being the same like diameter as a plant. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I think with hydrangeas, I want the diameter of the pot to be a little bit smaller than the canopy of the plant. So we'll see. But again, estate sale, can't tell you where to get those from if they look interesting to you. The other ones are all the same type of pot in different colors. So I got, let me get the tags out of here. I got these from Amazon, and I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total. And I got these because my favorite type of pot is a terracotta pot, but they don't last really well, especially leaving them out over winter in Chicago, and they're heavier. So when I carry these hydrangeas, whether I'm just moving them around the deck or carrying them down to the garage to store over winter, that's just added weight. So I got these. So let me grab the tag so I can tell you the information on them. But the brand is just PSW Pot Collection. I'm sure PSW stands for something. I don't know what that is, but I'm trying to remember if I found a website or not, or just found them on Amazon. But these are made from recycled plastic, stone, and wood, and they are lightweight and weather resistant. So I don't leave these outside because, again, I don't think my hydrangeas can last outside. A little bit due to the cold, mostly due to all of the rain that we get when it's still relatively cool in the spring, leading to root rot, etc. But you do drill holes in the bottom. It comes with a spot for one hole, but because again, I'm used to a lot of rain and issues with that in the garden, I drilled 4 extra ones, and it was super easy to drill those in. So these pots actually come in 3 colors, but one of the colors, when I originally I got one of each color just to have, and then I was gonna get more as I got more hydrangeas, and one of them was sold out for a while, but it seems like it's back in stock now. But I have multiples of 2 colors and one of the colors. So this one is the color, let me pull this up, terracotta, which I think makes sense. This is the one that looks most like a terracotta pot, but again, very lightweight, so easy to carry. Then I have this one, which let's see what color this one is. This is chocolate. So this is a darker brown. I like brown just in general because the brick here, the deck is brown, so I feel like it works as a really good neutral. Again, have the holes drilled there in the bottom. The dimensions on this, so it is 12 inches in diameter and then 11 inches deep. So same diameter as the small pots, but a little bit deeper. And then the one that I only have one color of is the lightest, and this one is taupe. So I guess I need to get more of these or more hydrangeas. We're gonna see how I feel about the number of hydrangeas I have once we get these all into place. But again, I think the larger one I'm gonna have to move somewhere else anyway, but I still might have too many. I don't know, we'll see. I can move things around. That's the joy of a container garden. So now I will show you how I pot these up, and then we will get things in place, and I'll talk to you a little bit about care and maintenance. Now, because I never learn and am once again wearing white, I decided to put on this jacket over top of my dress to hopefully not get it too dirty, but I'm gonna start potting up in one of the smaller containers, the only one I have left of the smaller size. And I'm choosing to put in the Wee Bit Innocent because that is the one that has the smallest height and width. So I think this one was 2 feet high, 2.5 feet wide. So that should hopefully work great in this container. Now, here I have my bin. This is the bin that I toss the excess soil into at the end of the season and then refresh it in the spring. It was empty because I used up all that soil, but I did find that I just like potting up in this so much better than trying to pour the bag of soil into a pot. It's a lot less messy. I don't want to spill dirt all over my deck and get it underneath the deck. So I put fresh potting soil into this bin. I don't know if it'll be enough for all the pots, but I have some extra. And then also just added in some perlite for better drainage. So what I'm going to do, I also have biotone here, is because I don't know, I think the depth of, I don't think I need to add any to the bottom of this one. So I'll sprinkle in some biotone. I will get the plant out of the pot, and I just realized I also need to get my labels so that I don't forget which of these plants is which. So I'm just going to use the nursery pot it came in, although this one is a little bit flimsier than what I typically like to use as a soil scoop, but that's what I'm going to use to then get the rest of the pot filled up with potting soil. Should also probably make sure that is in the center there. Almost, maybe one more scoop. I will also water these all in once I get them into place. The other ones I think I've already watered today, so I'm not going to water them at this point, but all the newly planted ones I will, and then add in any more soil if needed. So I think that one is good. I forgot to say, but these do have drainage holes at the bottom. They came with plugs, and they were pretty big drainage holes. So I think these ones are going to be just fine without having to drill anything additional into the bottom. Now, the rest of the containers are all the same size. It's all the PSW pots, and I'm not too concerned then about like the size of the plant to the size of the pot because pots are all the same. However, this is the duplicate of the Let's Dance Ariba, and the first one is in this color of the terracotta, so I also want to put this one in terracotta. Again, personal preference. I like that symmetry, so I'm going to put this in the same color pot. Now these are deeper, so I do need to add some soil to the bottom. I would really love it if the amount of potting soil in here works out so that I don't have to open up a fresh bag. A little more at the bottom there. I think that looks good. Again, when I'm planting things in pots, I like to leave about an inch between the soil and the top of the pot, just so when I'm watering, the water has somewhere to sit and soak in instead of it spilling over the edge of the pot. So biotone is mixed in there, and now we pot up the Let's Dance Ariba. Oh, actually, okay, that root ball is smaller than I expected. Let's put in what's left in that pot. There we go. I think some of these will be happy. Well, I think all of them will be happy to be out of their nursery pots and into larger pots. Now for most of these, or basically all of them except for the 6 to 9 foot hydrangea, I'm really hoping they'll stay happy in this size pot, just because, again, limited space on my deck, so I'd prefer not to go any larger, but we'll see. We'll see over time. I do add compost in the spring. If I ever have to like completely swap out soil eventually at some point, I will do that, but I'm really hoping that this will end up being a good size pot for these hydrangeas. All right, that's good. Now there are 3 left, so I'm just going to speed through that because it's going to be the exact same process. All right, I'm done with all of the hydrangeas. It feels so good to have them potted up. And this combination of using this bin, and then I did switch to a firmer nursery container, this is my jam for potting things up. I feel like it makes things go so much faster, and there's absolutely no mess for me to clean up. So I just need to figure out where to put this because there is still some soil in it, but there are more things that I have to plant up for a later video and a later time. So let's move this to the side. And I'm gonna try to figure out where all of these hydrangeas are going to go. Here's where we're at so far. So first off, I'm not allowed to get any more hydrangeas because I am out of room. So I have 5 over here. We did the Let's Dance Ariba, Tough Stuff Aha, Firelight Tidbit, Let's Dance Can Do, and then this one is these Let's Dance Skyview. So those are over here. I kind of tried to hit the one that doesn't look as great right now. And then over here, we have the Tough Stuff Top Fun, the other Let's Dance Ariba, Wee Bit Innocent on the right, Let's Dance Big Band on the left, and then I decided to put the non-compact hydrangea over here instead of over here because I think this is easier to access a faucet. We'll see how annoyed I get with that. But again, this one here I'm going to find a different place for at some point as it continues to get larger. And then I didn't have room over there for my 2 tiny quick fires. So I kind of like this right now. The chair and the couch keep moving around because not everything is in its final place yet. Hopefully it will be soon. But I think because those have the white flowers, they will look nice around like the blue and the white in the seating area. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Now I know the plants are going to grow, but at least right now I do still have room, a pretty good amount of room to get through here to water the plants over there and up and around. So we'll see, but I think I am happy with this setup, especially this side because 4 of these are already in bloom, but I can't wait to see what it looks like when all of these are in bloom. And I think, because sometimes if the hydrangeas are small, they don't bloom the first year, but I think all of these are large enough where I'm hoping I will get some flowers on them this year. All right, now let's talk a little bit about hydrangea care and maintenance. Now, again, I am not a hydrangea expert in any way, shape, or form, but I have learned a lot over the years. And for me, as a beginner gardener a few years ago, I feel like hydrangeas were very confusing because of the different types, whether to prune or not to prune. Each of them you prune differently. So I got this book, and it's a very simple, I feel like, breakdown. I read through this, I understand a lot more than I did before. I actually took notes on it so that I can remember all of the finer points, but it's called Success with Hydrangeas, A Gardener's Guide by Lorraine Bellato. So this book was really great if you also feel confused by hydrangeas. So here is what I do. In terms of pruning, I already went over that with the different types. I will follow the instructions by proven winners for each of these, and I pretty much won't do much of any pruning on most of them. So that should be simple. Watering. I make sure not to water too much because the more you water, the more nutrients are going to leach out. So I water when I need to. I know that's not a really great answer, but watering, I feel like, is so specific to your environment. I mean, for me, watering depends on pot size, temperature, where they're at on my deck, and that's going to be completely different for everybody. So I just water if I stick my finger in the top and the first few inches of soil are dry. Now, these are not actually set up on my drip. I find that they don't need to be watered as often as my annuals do that are in maybe different container types or have more plants shoved together. So I don't have these up on drip. They are all going to be hand watered by me. So I'm going to be in total control over watering all of my hydrangeas, and my goal is to not overwater them, obviously not underwater them either. And then another care tip, at least for me, specific to my environment, is one of the reasons I killed hydrangeas is that I kept them on the west facing deck, which was the first deck I gardened on. And it is just too hot for the hydrangeas that I had in the afternoon sun. I think they were big leaf hydrangeas. It's been a few years now, but there is basically no spot on that front deck that has the full afternoon sun where they didn't just burn to a crisp. So where I found they do best is right up here against this wall. So I'm on the deck that faces east. The sun comes from behind the camera. So these are the first plants in my garden that get sun in the morning. They do still technically get full sun, but they're getting it from about like maybe, when does the sun come up? 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m. to noon. And then they are in the shade for the afternoon, more intense heat. And so far, I haven't had any burn in this position. So I think this is where all of my hydrangeas are going to have to stay, is the east facing deck. Other than that, fertilizing, I typically will follow a normal fertilizing schedule of the March and May. That's what's recommended. But again, I'm in containers, so nutrients are leaking out much faster. So I will add fertilizer or any sort of nutrients, like I noticed what I think is an iron deficiency on one of these. I will add those in throughout the season. I think you're not supposed to fertilize after like July. If I notice any issues, I will add some fertilizer. If not, that's fine. I added in the biotone. I'll add in some compost year after year just to freshen up the soil. But I probably will, I mean, it's true for most of the containers compared to in-ground plants. I will be fertilizing these more often than I would if they were in the ground, but they're not getting fertilized weekly or bi-weekly like my annuals are. Perennials don't need as much fertilizer as annuals do. And then last, let's talk about winter care. Again, this is what has worked and not worked for me. So even though some of these are down to a zone 3, and technically they could be left out over winter, things that survive winter here, this has happened multiple times with multiple plants, but perennials that survive the winter, especially in smaller pots, when the early spring comes and we have snow that melts and we have a lot of rain mixed with cold or cool days, so the rain doesn't evaporate before they just continue to get rained on day after day, it leads to root rot. And I have lost, that's the other way I feel like I've lost hydrangeas. So either they burnt to a crisp on the front deck or they got root rot. So all of my hydrangeas, all of these, will be going down to the garage and sitting on our work table over winter. So that has been the way I've found that I can keep hydrangeas alive. As some of these get bigger, and I don't know if weight will be much of an issue because the pots are still pretty light, but I might try to put some, maybe I'll even test that with a few this winter. I do set up a temporary greenhouse or I'll put some plants in over winter. That gives them a little bit of protection from the cold, not a lot, but mostly it's protecting them from the excess moisture. So I'm hoping that will work out. But I'm not allowed to get any more hydrangeas, but I love this. I love how it's turned out. I'm so excited to see these all bloom and grow. I already know as they grow, I'm gonna have to shift and move things around, but that's okay. That's part of container gardening. So let me know if you have any questions. If there's anything else I can think of, I will link it down below. And then the spreadsheet I have with all the information on the specific varieties I have will be linked down below as well. But thank you so much for watching. I will give you updates on how this garden fills in, and I will see you in the next video.